To a murder case dating back 23 years this month. On September 26th of 1993, Boston Police Detective John Mulligan was apparently sleeping in his car in front of a Walgreens in Roslindale when he was shot 5 times in the face and killed following a robbery at that store. 19-year-old Sean Ellis was quickly arrested and tried for Mulligan's murder. The first 2 trials resulted in hung juries, although one jury did convict Ellis of weapons possession. At a 3rd trial in '95, he was convicted of John Mulligan's murder, sent to prison. But last year, that conviction was overturned, and last week, the state's highest court upheld that ruling. Suffolk DA Dan Conley has already declared his intention to prosecute Ellis one more time. Joining me now is Sean Ellis, who was released on bail last year after more than 20 years behind bars. Sean, it's good to meet you. Along with his attorneys, Rosemary Scapicchio and Jaleese McDonough. Great to meet you both. I know you. We invited District Attorney Dan Conley, by the way, to join us, but he declined based on his schedule. He said, so the SJC says Sean is entitled to a new trial. Give me the short version. Why?
Because the Boston Police Department withheld exculpatory evidence for 22 years.
Exculpatory in that there may have been other people who were likely or possibly responsible for the murder. Is that right? But also there was something about corrupt cops, no?
Yes. So one of the reasons that we got a new trial is because we were able to link the corruption of Becerra and Robinson directly to Mulligan. Mulligan was involved in some drug robberies with them. And the SJC found that he was involved in the corruption and therefore would have had a more of a role than originally thought when they filed the first motion for a new trial.
But they didn't say he was not guilty. They didn't say. They said he didn't get a fair trial. They didn't say he was not guilty, correct, Jaleese?
That's correct, but that issue wasn't really before the court. The court was really whether Sean did get a fair trial, and they decided that he didn't get a fair trial.
But they did, Chief Justice Gantz did seem to go out of his way. He says at one point that we agree the defendant's possession and concealment of these weapons, meaning the murder weapon and the victim's service weapon, only days after the killing, combined with evidence that he was at Walgreens at or about the time of the killing, is evidence he was involved in the killing in some fashion, even though Gantz does go out of his way to then say it doesn't mean he did the shooting or that he was actively aware of what was going on. So there's not exoneration, I just want to be clear, right?
No, there wasn't. But just as with many other aspects of the trial, Becerra, Robinson, Brazel were involved in every aspect of finding the weapons, and Brazel was actually part of the team that found the weapons in the field. So,
how'd you feel when, I don't know if you got a call, how'd you feel when you heard, I know you've been out a year, but this high court thing, what did it feel like when you heard that they were confirming, as you breathe deeply, the lower court ruling? How'd you feel?
So it was just a matter of that, like a huge relief, because even though I've been out for a year, the possibility of going back to prison knowing that I didn't do anything was just a heavy weight on me.
I know you made really good use of your time getting involved in important organizations. You got yourself a paralegal degree and a whole bunch of things. But was there a piece of you, Sean, that said, I'm going to be stuck in this box for the rest of my life, despite how hard people like this fight for me and despite how hard I try to tell what I see to be the truth? Was that a huge piece of you?
It's a piece that I had to go back and forth with. Is after being told no on numerous occasions, trial, uphill, motion for new trial the first time, that's something that I had to battle with. But I have great faith and I never gave up.
How do you feel about these cops that were called essentially corrupt by the state's highest court? How do you feel about them? I mean, they're in great part responsible for you losing more than half of your life with a kid and sibling. I mean, how do you feel about them?
I mean, if there was a policy that was in place, if there was a practice that was in place, then like the presence of police officers that are like this, the presence of police officers that are corrupt wouldn't even be an issue. So like there needs to be like an investigation done and policies and procedures put in place to adequately and effectively deal with such type of police officers.
Before you respond, can I just one more thing, and then I know you want to get involved in this. Had you ever used a computer before you went to jail?
When I was young.
Had you ever seen a smartphone?
No.
How did you get, I read an interview with you where you said to somebody, you're living with a pastor, correct?
Yes.
Where you had to ask somebody how long you could stay in a shower?
Yes.
Why did you ask that question?
Because like in prison, there's time limits on how long you can stay in the shower. Sometimes you can't even take showers, given situations that might be going on with the water.
And you're also pretty vulnerable, and isn't that a vulnerable setting
absolutely,
for an inmate?
Absolutely.
What do you want to say here?
Well, I think the thing that needs to be talked about a little bit here is the idea that the Boston Police Department knew that they had corrupt police officers working on this case.
The brass we're talking about.
They knew.
Who?
The commissioner himself.
Who was
knew
the commissioner
that, then? It was Bratton.
Bratton and then Evans.
And then Evans. But when Bratton put together his 50 of the Boston's finest to do this investigation, he knew that Walter Robinson had already been under investigation for ripping off a drug dealer together with Mulligan. And he withheld that information for 22 years.
Evans is going to be here tomorrow night for other things, body cameras. You think Commissioner Evans, and I know he's not commissioner then, was aware of the corruption of the cops that testified?
Well, if he didn't know, then he should have. I mean, how do people go around and rob drug dealers, and then you put them on your list of 50 of the best, and you know at the time that they're under investigation? He had to have known, because their own policies require that they notify the commissioner if any police officer has committed a criminal act. He knew about the investigation into Mulligan. He knew about the investigation into Robinson, and he still let them work on this case.
Just to be clear, when you say he knew, you believe he knew. You don't know that he knew, do you?
Well, the paperwork in the internal file suggests that he was notified. So unless he didn't read his own report, he knew.
Is there any chance that Connolly changes his mind here, or as far as you both are concerned, meaning both lawyers in this case, there is going to be a fourth trial for Sean? Is that where you are?
I think there's a great possibility they could change their mind. We plan to retest everything and really get to the bottom of what happened. And I think once they see how much the corruption may be revealed, there's a strong potential they could decide not to.
Do you worry about that trial? I mean, we talked about whether or not you worried that you'd ever get out, and then you worried whether the SJC was going to confirm this lower court ruling by Judge Ball, I believe it was.
Judge Ball, yes.
Do you worry about, if there's a fourth trial, that you may end up exactly where you were, Sean?
Well, I'm confident that at this stage of things that the truth will reveal itself, and that if there is a fourth trial, that I will be vindicated. So I'm not necessarily worried.
I'm sorry, I mean, that SJC quote, the quote from Judge Gantz, where he says something, evidence he was involved in the killing in some fashion. Were you involved in any fashion with the killing of Officer Mulligan?
No.
Detective Mulligan? What are you doing now?
What do you mean?
What are you doing with your life?
Oh, so
I don't mean right here. I know where you are right now.
Like, wait.
What are you doing with your life?
So I'm really, what it comes down to, I'm enjoying my family. I'm enjoying freedom. Just to be out and able to move around and just live.
Are you angry at it? I mean, you seem so calm and sort of self-assured. Are you angry at the cops? Are you angry at the brass? Are you angry at the justice system? Are you angry at anybody? Or?
I'm angry about what happened. I can't say that I'm angry at particular individuals, but I'm angry at the fact that what happened could have happened, because I'm sure that I'm not the only person that it had happened to, and so it's that the anger is really around.
And that's what we're calling for. We're calling for an investigation as to how and why. Now that
By
we
whom?
know,
By whom?
by either the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Attorney General's Office, or the Governor's Office. Now that we know that both the trial court and the SJC have both said there's been evidence withheld that resulted in Sean serving 22 years for a crime he didn't commit, don't we need to do an investigation? Doesn't there need to be some investigation into how this happened, and why, if Evans is going to say he didn't know, why didn't you know? These were your cops. It was on your watch. And how do we assure ourselves that it's not going to happen again, or that it hasn't happened? How many Sean Ellises are there sitting in jail right now being prosecuted by that same homicide unit of corrupt cops? And why should we let that just die? And what are we going to do, litigate this one at a time? There needs to be an overall investigation. When there's a plane crash, we stop everything and we investigate. We look at how it happened, why it happened, and we try to prevent it from happening again. Nobody's doing that here, and I think that's what needs to happen.
Sean, thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Rosemary, thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
It's good to meet you, Julius.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for your time.